Alec Gordon.
Simon McLean.
Great to meet you here in sunny. Can I say where we are?
Yeah, of course.
And come on up. I don't want your fans knowing where you are.
Yeah, well, I try to hide from as much as I possibly can, but they locate me and I've got it.
We're talking about the background noise there, that bird that's making the noise. The place that we normally do recordings, there was a playgroup in the other day. And when we got the recording made and played back, it was full of YouTube pulling us up for copyright. Because the kids were all singing "The Wheels on the Bus Go Round" and songs like that, so I've had to edit the whole thing.
Alright, well,
I think the bird song will be alright.
I think I'll let them away with that, unless they break into Help the Beatles or something like that.
Alec.
Yes.
I only came out here to do a short interview. I've been here nearly 2 hours already. We've decided to put something down on camera. The first question that's really bugging me is I asked Sandy Jimison this, and he bit my head off. I said, what's the connection with Alec Gordon and Ringwood? And he said, if you don't know that, you shouldn't be doing this, blah, 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 blah. Because it goes so far back. And I thought, he's been a bit evasive here. There must be a story here. And Alec will tell me what Sandy won't.
Yeah,
how did you two get in tow?
I'll tell the truth here.
I'm banking on it.
I'll bust the secrets. Sandy is terribly jealous of me. And, there's no need for
understandably.
And it's not just my good looks. He's terribly, terribly jealous because in another lifetime, I used to do the World Soccer. I was the Scottish football correspondent for the magazine World Soccer.
Right.
And Sandy was a reader of World Soccer, and he always wondered who this guy Alec Gordon was.
Right.
He's also, amazingly, he read L'Equipe and he read France Football, and I was the Scottish correspondent. I was at the Daily Record at the time,
right.
Mainly as a sub-editor.
So he was a fan.
So he hated me because he wanted that gig,
right?
And now he's making my life hell. So he's now getting his revenge.
The good thing you asked that question is I know you'd tell me the truth because you two have obviously had the longest. You're 6 books with Ringwood?
I have 4, 5, 6. Yes.
Yeah, you don't even know. So there's a long friendship there now as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would hope so. I know that he'll see this, but yeah, he's a pal.
Yeah,
he's good company.
I'm not telling him you said that.
No, I do. I like him. I've got a lot of time for him.
Good.
Yeah.
So that's why Ringwood, and you've stayed with Ringwood all this time. Has he got something on you?
Yeah, he's blackmailing me. Mainly I do football books.
Right.
And the first bit of fiction that I did was Who Shot Wild Bill, which was published by Crime Lab. It was one of their first books. Now, the only reason that I did it, Simon, the truth that so many people I know were saying to me, why don't you write fiction?
Uh-huh.
But if only they knew that a lot of the factual stuff
was fiction.
Yeah.
You're a reporter.
You want to jazz up somebody's life story, so okay. So you will say, how about we? And they, well, yeah, okay, sure, fine. Yeah. This is secrets.
You know the byline on my book, the 10%, the truth, the whole truth.
Yeah, I've got the book.
Something like the truth.
Yeah.
So that kind of covers it, doesn't it?
Aye. Well, we can be a wee bit manipulative with the truth.
Economical.
Like that.
Yeah, creative, I think, is the word I'm looking for.
So anyway, I wrote, I was writing a Dennis Law book, and amazing coincidence, both these books.
I love these name droppers.
I know, I'm sorry. But I was writing Dennis's book, and they were both published on exactly the same day.
Right.
But I had to come off Dennis because I was getting bogged down in statistics. And I hadn't realised there was so much about Dennis that I really didn't know. A lot of the stuff that say about Celtic and Lisbon in that particular season, I saw all the games. So there's not enough lot of hard work entailed in going back and looking at details. Dennis, I was getting bogged down, and I thought
he played abroad, he played in Italy and all that.
You needed to get all the stats and what he had done. You got to prop up the years that I've got to go and work and find out what was going on in these years. So basically, that was the time I thought I need a break from this. And people had said to me, "Why don't you write fiction?" And I had an idea about Millport, and they were the country and western weekend there every
Yes,
year, and it's
yes.
just crazy. I mean, I think I upset a lot of people by saying Millport's the biggest outside lunatic asylum.
Uncovered, yeah. Yeah.
So every fifer in the world didn't buy that particular book. But anyway, I'd set it there. I mean, I love Millport. I've been going there for years, and there are years when they have got like 20 odd thousand people
Yes.
on that little island. And it's only 10 miles in circumference.
Do you think it'll be worse this year because they've not had it for the last couple of years?
I know that the advertising, they're trying everything now to get as many festivals in as they possibly can, Simon. But the strange thing is that the people that turn up, they've got the guns and they've got
Yeah.
and they've got they've got the Buffalo Bill hair and the Wild Bill Hiccup moustaches. And what do you do?
You've never been at Grand Old Opry?
No.
See, I used to work in Govan. So every Saturday night it was like that at Fraser Road Toll.
Yeah, but funnily enough, a lot of these guys were from the Grand Old Opry.
Right.
And you would go into and they changed all the names of the pubs. Like Big Jack became the Old Cactus Saloon or some guff like that. and they just took it so seriously. And you would go in and they were cleaning guns and stuff. You know, it was
So it was a bit like Govan Ryan,
well, I come for the goggles. So many Gatling guns.
You're selling the guns.
So, with the drugs. Buy the drugs, get a gun free. So, anyway, to cut a long boring story short, I thought, well, why don't we actually stage a murder on Millport? And
Right.
I upset the good Millport people because there's never been a murder in Millport. And you would know.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the only places in Scotland
That's never
been. I mean, they're too bored with each other to kill each other in Millport. They just talk behind each other. So anyway, I staged this. It's an accidental shooting to say, okay, it's not a murder. It's somebody's been killed. How about that? Will we go killed and say, yeah, okay, killed.
It's a great thing about fiction, isn't it? You can just rub a bit out.
So you can move it around. and anyway, the thing was published, and Sandy saw it.
Right.
And I think at that time, he wondered, that couldn't possibly be the same
guy.
Alan Gordon,
Yeah.
can it? That's been bedeviling me all my life. And so Sandy eventually bought the rights of Crime Lab, and I went to see him, and for whatever reason, it just immediately clicked with the guy. And it's always a pleasure to be in his company.
Yeah. Can that happen without an author say so, Alec, that a publisher buys the rights from another publisher without you being in the equation anywhere?
I think a courtesy, a professional courtesy, they would get in touch with you. Yeah. I don't.
But it could happen anyway.
I'm sure it could.
Because they own the rights.
But then again, if you're the author, you could just, well, I'm not going to write for these guys.
Yeah.
Then you can then go and change the character.
Yes.
Change Charlie Brock to Freddie Brock.
Yeah.
And just keep it going. So the new guy, the new publishers are left with one book and one book only.
Freddie Brock. There's an idea.
There's Freddie.
On Aaron.
Right. Okay.
So Sandy then has the association with it. This is why he never told me the story, because he was a fan. That is why.
Yeah,
he couldn't admit that.
He's kept that quiet up until now, and I'm sorry, Sandy. You're still on the Christmas card list.
I'm bearing in mind everything you tell me now. You're a fiction writer now, so I don't believe a word you tell me anyway.
Well, funnily enough, I don't either, and I'm saying it.
And your history and background. Alec, what was your... you alluded to being a journalist there, so what was your career in journalism?
I alluded to being a journalist. Yeah. Basically, I was lucky. I got into the Daily Record when I was 15.
Okay.
That was May 22, 1967, and I was a dog's body.
Right.
Basically, I was
so
in the door.
Not the bottom.
I was aspiring to get to the bottom. I was doing my best to reach bottom, and it was. I don't know. A lot of things went my way.
Right.
I think I was in the right place at the right time a lot of the time.
How did you land there? Were you just out of school, 15?
I sent letters away to a variety of newspapers.
So you wanted to be involved in writing?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. My dad used to work in the railway, and one of his jobs was to clean the carriages.
Uh-huh.
So he knew that I was into newspapers. My dad would always come in at night with the Daily Record.
Right.
He would buy a first edition. But he would bring in...
I thought you were going to say he found it in the carriages. You thought he bought it?
No, I think he actually did buy those ones. It came in with hot rolls as well, I remember that. And he'd pick up the Manchester Evening News and the London Standard and papers that you didn't get here in Scotland.
Yeah.
And I became a newspaper junkie. You know, at a very early age, I was reading. I was waiting for my dad to come in, and he would have this pile of papers, and I'd sit and go through all these papers.
Okay.
And
a strange child.
I got
Where
confused.
did you live at that point? Where were you from?
Castlemilk. Well, I was born in the Gorbals,
Right.
and I was brought up in Castlemilk. And I think I've said this before, that I get confused with Superman and Clark Kent. I thought Clark Kent, the Daily Planet reporter, was the hero.
Right.
And the guy with the knickers, he was just
the guy who flew about, saved the world.
But I like Clark Kent.
So you modelled yourself on Clark?
No, so Superman. You can't see me, but I've got my life.
I'm glad I can't see it.
So that's basically newspapers seem to.
Were you good at English?
To be in.
Yep.
Yeah. The subjects at school that I loved were art, English, history, and languages.
Sport?
Sport, yeah. Well, I played for Glasgow Schools.
Right.
When
football?
I played. Yeah, I was a goalkeeper for the under-15s, and I went to Motherwell.
Where are you now, if you don't
70.
Know? Well, that's interesting, because the over-70s played today at Tory Glen in our over-70s walking football league, and we had no goalie because there's 2 on holiday and 1 injured or whatever. And that age group we're struggling for goalkeepers, so that's something we can come back, because Sandy's going to come and give it a go as well. You've been telling me that for 3 years now. It
will be a warm day in Minsk before Sandy puts on another pair of boots.
What about you?
Likewise.
Okay, I did try.
I'm afraid decades of debauchery have wrecked me, as you can see. and this is me looking good.
I'm just trying to find a keeper I may get a goal against. That's what I'm really looking
I'm your man. No, so I enjoyed.
Okay, so you played sport.
Yeah.
You were obviously quite accomplished in goals. Played for Glasgow.
I played for Glasgow, and I went to Motherwell. My pal at school was a year younger than me. He went to Celtic. We used to train.
Who was that?
Tommy Livingston.
Right.
A young goalkeeper, and. For whatever reason, it didn't work for Tommy. They farmed him out to the juniors. They hated the juniors, and they
fades away.
That's it.
Well, it does for 99% of boys that come through the system.
Livy was a better goalkeeper than me because we trained with each other, and he was a better goalkeeper. For me, when I went out to the record at first, then I was at Motherwell, but I couldn't train with Motherwell because I was working back shift at the record.
Right.
The Motherwell manager at the time, Bobby Hibbett, said to me, like, what are you? You know, you're a goalkeeper, you're a journalist. Let me know.
Yeah.
And basically, I had really got into newspapers then. I mean, I tell the story, Simon, that you might remember the name. The chief sports writer at the time of the Daily Record was Hugh Taylor.
Yes, I do, very well.
Right, well, I celebrated my 16th birthday joining the Daily Record. I think it was 2 days into. I'm the youngest member of the NUJ in Glasgow.
Right.
So,
right.
And Hughie came over to me. A marvellous guy. And Hughie said, welcome to the Daily Record.
Yeah.
I'll take you out for a drink. And I said, well, Mr. Taylor, I said, I'm just turned 16, I'm not allowed to drink. And he said, listen, son, I'm the profit margin down here. He said, you want a drink, you're a Hughie Taylor. So I went down there, and I'm kind of getting introduced to these guys, and I'm just a kid. I don't feel as though I've left school that long ago. And I'm with Hughie Taylor. And
who knows everybody?
Hughie was famous. He was actually more famous than some of the footballers.
Yes.
And Hugh Taylor's football book, if I didn't get that at Christmas was cancelled.
Yeah.
I had to have the Hughie Taylor football book. So I'm standing with this guy at a bar, and I have him in a pint of lager, he's having a large whiskey, whatever it was. And he's asked me about myself, and he's shown a wee bit of interest. And that's really nice. Lovely man. I said, I better ask him something about himself. I said, Hugh, have you always been a sports writer? He went, no, son. He said, I was a tank commander in the war. What am I doing here?
Yeah. That brings it home, doesn't
it? One minute I'm sitting at school at St Maggie's beside Morag MacDonald, and the next minute I'm with a tank commander.
Wow.
So I realised that was something a bit special.
And it reminds me a wee bit when I joined the police as well, because the best advice, the sage advice that you would get from the old sergeant, I always remember an old sergeant, Alec McLean, saying to me, son, keep your ears and eyes open and your mouth shut. That was the advice that I got, because you were with these hairy bottomed guys, who were they were ex-soldiers. They'd come back from the war and were senior police officers, and they weren't wanting wee boys annoying them with daft questions, What an education.
For both of us, No, I remember my first sports editor was a lovely guy called Jack Adams, and that's where I've been so lucky, Simon, because a lot of the guys I worked with were absolutely extraordinary human beings, and they helped me a lot. And Jack, I was just getting to know Jack, and Jack said, "You got an ego, son?" And I went, Mr. Adams, I said, "I was born in the Gorbals and brought up in Castleknock. We don't do egos in these places." And he said, "Keep it like that, son." He said, "Because the egos need constantly fed."
Yeah.
And I had just turned 16 at the time when Jack told me that, and I've remembered it ever since. And whenever I've seen people that are legends in their own lunchtime, and you've met them, I look at them and go, "I wish Jack Adams had a word with you when you were a teenager." Because as far as egos are concerned, no, I don't have one.
And it's like they keep your ears and eyes open, that kind of advice. You're thankful for it many, many times over.
Well, Jack said to me, he said, "What do you want to be in newspapers, son?" And I said, "I think I'd like to be a reporter." He said, "Would you like to be a reporter or a writer?" And that said to you, I didn't know the difference. I said, "Oh, I go to football games and want to interview the managers and players." And Jack said, "Why don't you do everything?" He said, "At your age," he said, "why don't you do production? You can drop pages, you can make the decisions, you can tell which story goes where." He said, "Think about production." He said, "and you'll see where that takes you." And I was 16 at the time, and by the time I was 23, Simon, I was the chief sports sub-editor at the Daily Record.
Right.
Which basically meant you were in charge.
Yes. And is that because you had seen how it all worked by that?
Aye.
You'd done everything.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's interesting here. I had a conversation with the interns at Ringwood the other night. Some of them brand new, and some of them have been with us for up to a year. And I was saying to them about marketing, and most of them come into the publishing industry, if you like. They're trying to get a gateway in, and Ringwood is a vehicle for that, to get a wee bit of experience, to get a foot in the ladder, to get something in their CV that they can say to a big publishers, "Here's what I've done."
Sure.
And I was saying to them, don't niche yourself that you do editing or you do proofreading or you deal with submissions. Marketing is a part of everything that you do. You've got to market yourself.
Sure.
And try and get a feel for every aspect of the publishing industry. Yeah. That's what you're really saying here.
I agree with you totally. Yeah. I mean, Jack, then after that conversation with Jack, because I'll listen to Jack, and Jack was a smashing operator. And if he said it, it was worth me taking it on board. And it basically then, by the time I had kind of moved up the ranks, if you want to put it that way, I knew how the point size, if you like, for Shawfield Dogs, when the results were due to come in, and I could also do the back page.
Right.
So that was a real A to Z. There was nothing that fazed you. If somebody said, "We're missing this," you could go and you source it for somewhere.
Yeah.
You came across so much wonderful characters. There's so many. I mean, in midweek we used to do the Highland edition. So you would have the Highland League playing on a Wednesday night, and Jack would give me the games, all of them. So about 8, 9, 10. You look after them. They're all 2 inches each, and that is real editing.
Okay.
Because some of these things.
Because you're getting reports in from people at these games. From reporters that are sending you the story of the game, which will be a page.
It doesn't matter. You say, "Please keep it to 150 words."
Right. That's not going to happen.
No. The school teacher's going to go there and get excited.
Right.
And Elgin are drawing nothing each way, Brora. So I'm going
to the weather and the whole bit.
Exactly. And I remember
everybody in the crowd gets a mention at the Brora game. Gene McDougall was here, well man.
And there was Joe Wilson and goal, my wee pal Joe Wilson. We went through each other. Meanwhile, you're editing, getting this. No, cut it
so
right.
You had to get it down to 2 lines.
Well, you had to get in it. Like Jack would leave you. It was hot metal. I mean, that's really
the printing process.
Look at it a long time. Wow. I mean, it had been hot metal for about 2 centuries.
Right.
And then along came all everything else and digital and whatever. So basically, you can't argue with hot metal. If it doesn't fit, you can't squeeze it in there. So you've got to get these damn things to fit. So
and you do that manually. The computer doesn't
no,
justify it for you.
You've got to count either the lines or the words, and you won't have time to count the words. If you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games coming in,
Yes.
meanwhile, if somebody doing one game, the back page says, okay. Meanwhile, look at me.
Yeah.
But it was great.
Learning curve.
But dealing with the Highlanders, I love them all dearly. But some wouldn't turn up. The game wouldn't be there, so you had to go and phone the Press and Journal and say, look, can you bail us out? But the following day, you would find out who was that correspondent. You would get in touch with them, and you would get excuses like, "Oh, son, I had a burst tyre going to the game in my bike, so I just went home." And you go, "Oh, that's fine, thanks very much. Could you not phone us or let us know?" Because in those days, without mobiles and whatever,
different world.
Yeah, it really was a different world, but it was a great experience.
Yes,
it was fabulous, and so when you went to I took over at the Sunday Mail, what age, 34 or something like that. It meant if something went missing on a Saturday, I would just write it myself.
Yeah.
So what was the scoreline, who scored, and you would just sit and type it.
Yeah.
And then you'd get the proper report in, but that would get the first edition out. And that was when
that's the name of the game.
That's the name of the game, because if you're sitting somewhere, say at Anderson Quay, you can look out the editorial window and you can see all the vans coming along Clydeside
to pick up the paper.
And they're all in line because that one's going to Orkney and this one's going to Elgin and wherever the heck.
You're sitting going,
writer's
block.
Try telling that to me, Fred, that's got the Orkney run, he's wanting that paper.
Because there's a whole domino effect. Everything. There's people waiting to pick that up at such and such a point. Because the newspaper distribution used to be fascinating, to say.
Fascinating.
We used to take advantage of it in the polls. Because we had a van and it looked like part of the distribution system. But it was full of coppers in the back of it, the untouchables. But I can't go there publicly. Guys like Joe Jackson, Keith's dad, he was one of the untouchables at the time. If I tell you that when we came back to the office, everybody had to leave their firearm on the desk open, so that none of us had it when we played cards. You weren't allowed to wear your firearm when we played cards. That's how daft these guys were. You wouldn't trust them with a firearm. But anyway, that was the distribution system of vans travelling all over the country.
But the people also, as you say, that the domino effect. Nowadays, with new technologies, you can get bigger newspapers. The Sunday Mail, I think we could do 68 pages. Right. That was it.
Right.
Now you can do 100, no problem.
Okay.
So basically, what that meant is that if you were doing a first edition, that hit the streets in Glasgow. Again, days are before apps and whatever. If you wanted to know what won the first at Shawfield at Bowden Hall, you and the pubs back then closed at 10.
Of course.
So people were coming out the pubs and you would give a vendor selling papers.
Shouting in the street.
So basically,
you never knew what he was saying, but you knew it was a newspaper somewhere in there.
You're probably cussing and swearing, you and your family.
Yes, he'd been in the pub till 10 o'clock as well.
So, but that was it.
Here's one that will be fascinating for any other footballers walking footballers that watch this. How did the paper get out so quick on a Saturday after the game finished? Because you could be at Firhill or Parkhead or Ibrox and get the paper on your way home. The Green Citizen, or was it that?
Well, the Sunday Mail would come out. We would aim to try and get the Sunday Mail out, definitely for 8 o'clock. But sometimes, if the Lords were kind to you, you can get it out at the back about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And basically, the quick answer is hard work.
Yeah,
hard work. I mean, all the pages were pre-drawn.
Right, so it's filling the blank.
And we were off pop metal back then, but it's still not as sophisticated as it is now. You had to take a chance if you were drawing up, say, a back page. The easy picture size would be a square.
Okay.
Because that's more likely you get a picture taken from the game that will fit a square. You're not going to get something that's wide or deep.
Okay.
So
safest bet is a square.
So the safest
bet. That space.
So all the pages that you saw were
laid out like that.
Are laid out and they're safe.
Yes.
But of course, when you then after the first edition, you get a chance to have another look at it. You might get a picture that's crazy. It's that shape.
Yeah.
And you want that shape. And you want that in the paper. That's what tabloid papers are.
Yes.
They are a vehicle.
And yes.
Yeah, they're eye-catching. I mean, it was the tabloid started in America. and basically there were huge pictures on the front page and very little words.
Right.
So basically, tabloids in the UK too, we use pictures better than broadsheets.
Yes.
Broadsheets. But if you look at, if you can never remember a broadsheet, and a lot of people won't know what I'm talking about, they would have pictures up here. All this was grey.
Right.
The second part, if you think of an express, there was no pictures down here. They were all up here. So basically, you had to, for a first edition, you had nothing too fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Just get.
And your tabloids today are the same. The headline takes up at least half the page, and then the picture, and you get a wee intro paragraph continued on page whatever.
Yeah.
But the eye-catching bit is the big picture. That's what sells the paper, basically.
That's what a tabloid paper. If it's doing its job, Simon, it's got a good headline. It's got an eye-catching headline. It's got an eye-catching picture.
Okay. I think you need to explain hot metal, because I think I know what you mean, but I don't know that everybody else will.
Hot metal was linotype.
Because it sounds like some kind of band.
I know. I'd probably have got some of the records, but basically it was linotype, and you're going to take me into an area where you get terribly technical. It was good old days of paper, typewriters. You could sub-edit the story. You then sent it to
was that a Tipex job?
No, there were some that was a Tipex. Actually, the weight of their copy was about 2 stone. You know, by the time you'd Tipex out the errors. But I actually used to sub-edit with a typewriter.
Okay.
I found that quicker.
So you rewrote it?
Aye.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could take out words and put in words. But sometimes that could get a bit messy. So you're sending that to a linotype operator.
Yes,
he can misread it.
Aye, yeah.
And by the time, I mean, again, one of the good things about hot metal was that it was called the stone shift, and basically the stone meant that there was a huge area, and that was proofed, so that was off the stone, but it was on a big bit of metal, and then it would be inked.
Right.
So you would have a look at the back page or the front page and say, right, that's off the stone, so it's time for the paper to go. So it was off stone. So basically, if you were reading hot metal, you're reading something back to front and upside down.
Yes.
Trying to spot an error before that's proofed.
So you can read upside down?
I could do, yeah.
Aye.
You could spot, right, you know, why is there a that in there instead of a
that?
that?
Come in handy when you're at the doctors and stuff like that, for your notes?
It comes in handy when I go like that. But that was fun. And Jack Adams, I couldn't work beyond 10 o'clock until I was 18.
To get home?
That was the law of the land. The law of the land. So whenever I hit 18, I could work till 1 in the morning.
Okay.
My shift was from 5 in the evening to it was the horrible shifts. I hated them.
Yeah.
But I had to do them. And Jack, I think when I first turned 18, Jack said, "You're on the stone."
Right.
And I thought I was 18 years old, and you're in control.
Big responsibility. Yeah.
I mean, basically, I'd never bummed myself up. Why would I? But you realise you're in charge.
Right.
And if there's a horror in there, that's down to you.
Yes.
Because you're the stone man.
Yeah.
That's your shift. You're the guy. I mean, the amount of mistakes that we get through with some guys taking their eye off the ball. You would have headlines that had been stripped out. So you had a headline in another that should be an Aberdeen story, but you've got a story here about Hibs, and the stone man has missed totally that they've not taken out the headline. And these things could happen.
Yeah, of course. It's human nature. It's human error.
But, I mean, we had a sub-editor, God bless him. He emigrated to Australia. I think we put together to get him to Australia. He had Tony Jacklin winning a golf tournament until it was pointed out Tony Jacklin wasn't in that particular golf tournament. But he had in his head. So he wrote the headline, Jacklin wins again, or whatever tournament it was.
Checked who actually won it.
No, the stone man let it go. Because, I mean,
you would take it.
You'd take that for granted. He's got the honour.
He's still going to be a mistake like that.
But yeah, he did. So these things happen. It was part of it.
The great thing about newspapers, and I learned this through some of the guys that I knew back in the day, is that the next day it's wrapping paper for a fish supper, isn't it? It's dusted. You can't dwell on it.
No.
Because no sooner is it gone to print than you're working on the next one. It's as quick as that. It's like hospitals and hotels. They're 24/7. The new day just becomes the new day.
I
it's
like
relentless. Yeah.
I like that.
I like that in the Polis as well. You could go off duty at 11 o'clock at night and the place was mayhem and you were knackered. You'd maybe be done a 12-hour shift. When you came back in at 7 in the morning, the place was totally calm because that was all done. You were in a new emergency situation, a new day. Every clean sweep, cleaners were in, cleaned the whole place, and it just kept going relentlessly, whether you were there or not.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, people would say, did it not get a bit samey? No.
No, just the opposite.
There was always something else.
Yes.
And there was, again, the kudos, forget that. You know, you could put out a really good paper, you could wipe the floor with the opposition, it doesn't matter.
What you do tomorrow.
Exactly, and if the opposition are any good, they're going to try and come back at you that day.
Yes.
You know, to try and restore a wee bit of pride.
Because there's a marketplace here as well, it's competitive.
Here's the strangest thing, Simon, we were talking about the press club on West Regent Street. It was a big long bar, and the Daily Record would be there, the Daily Express would be there, and the Evening Sits.
So
we never mingled. I know, that was the rule. But we never mingled. It was like they were the enemy.
Yeah.
It was like
what's what you're saying?
Oh, for sure. And, you know, you go to the loo and one of the Express boys would come in, are you going to talk to him? You know?
Yeah.
So there was a real good rivalry.
Yeah,
which
that made everybody raise their game that wee bit as well.
Oh yeah, there was I mean, I don't. People have said to me in the past, where'd you get that from? You know, I mean, and I've never really analysed it honestly. But people say, do you think it's maybe your background, but you've had to force yourself? Well, I've never really. The answer I don't know.
Never thought about
but
it.
Maybe,
it's just part of you. Yes.
Maybe I wanted to succeed. I never particularly wanted to be a boss. Never. Honestly, it was just something that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Alec Cameron.
And you said to me that somebody was talking about you. No, that was somebody else I was talking to earlier on the day. They were going to be. The family wanted him to be an accountant, and he knew that wasn't what he wanted to be. No. He's ended up getting into event management and stuff like that, where he's dealing with people. But it was you being lucky, yes, but knowing where you fitted.
It was a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And a lot of sacrifices. I mean, but
you've got to want it. There's got to be a passion involved to make it,
definitely.
to become really good at something. And at 23 years of age, being the sub-editor.
Being the chief sub at the time, a lot of people say, what does a chief sub do? A sports sub-editor? What's a chief sports? Well, you're in charge of all the sub-editors for a start.
Right.
And there's an army of them. You're their boss. But also, the sports editor would normally go away about 5 o'clock at night.
Right.
No, he's been in since 9.
Yeah.
And he's not Superman, so he's not even Clark Kent.
Yeah.
And so therefore, you know, they would go to the evening conference. They would come out and say, right, this is what we would know what the news were doing. We knew what features were doing.
For the next day.
No, for that night.
Okay.
Night. Yeah. So just in case if something broke, but that's the front page are taking care of that.
Right.
Because that could happen sometimes a wee bit of crossover.
Yeah.
So we knew what news were doing, the news knew what sport were doing, and then the sports editor would go away. So basically, you were in charge, and you know, newspapers don't stop at 5 o'clock. News doesn't immediately. It doesn't shut down.
Especially in sport.
Unless it was something sensational.
Because it's global as well,
aye.
The Open's on in Australia in the middle of the night, and there's sport going on all the time.
That was one of the first things I did when I was a kid was the Muhammad Ali fight.
Yes.
And he had just
won.
I knew you were going to ask me. I actually think it was the Sonny Liston,
right? Before my time.
I know, sadly.
I was only a wee boy, when he changed his name and all that. It was just about then he changed
his name as soon as he won the world title from Sonny Liston. The following day he changed his name to Muhammad Ali.
He was Cassius Clay.
But it was one of those fights anyway. But anyway, we never Sky, and it was the Armed Forces radio that we could pick up.
Right.
To
get that news.
Yeah. So I would be sitting, and it would be like 2 or 3 in the morning starts.
Aye.
And I'm sitting either in Hope Street, as it was, or maybe Anderson Quay, and I'm doing the fight. I don't see anything.
No.
So I'm trying to describe the fight that Ali hit him with a couple of good rights and rocked so and so. And I'm writing this, and I remember the editor we were talking about earlier, Benny Vickers, who kept firing people, including me. He came up, and the fight was just about to start, and Bernie was in great form. What are you fucking doing? I said, That's my Mancunian accent. I said, I'm doing the fight tonight, Bernie. Right, clean up this place. And it was covered with empty cans of lager, whatever. You know. I said, I don't think so. And he said, Tennitor's telling you to clean up. And I said, I can boil your heat. Which sadly he knew what I meant. And so he fired me. He said, you're fucking fired.
Right.
And I said,
Again.
I'm about to do the Muhammad Ali fight. You're fucking fired after the Muhammad Ali fight. So the following day, I went in and saw Bernie. I said, Bernie, am I still fired? Yeah, and I'm away boiling my heat. So it was great. It was fabulous. I mean,
what an education.
It was brilliant because a lot of my pals from Castlemar would get into a variety of jobs.
Yeah.
And the times that I could catch up with them because working back shift was hopeless.
Yeah.
I was finishing at 10 when the pub were closing at 10, and they would say, Alec, can you come and help us? We're in the Glassford Hotel, and I'm piling them onto the bus at night. They're all blotto apart from me. But
the other thing you mentioned there that I'd like to clarify was the writing and the journalist. Can you explain that a wee bit to me? Never mind anybody that's watching. The difference between a journalist and a writer.
Yeah, a reporter will.
Sorry, a reporter and a writer
will report purely on the facts.
Okay.
And
with no viewpoint.
Not necessarily. You don't need opinion.
Okay.
If World War III breaks out, just write that. World War III broke out.
Yeah.
Was broken out. You don't really need this is terrible. Just just get on with reporting what's happening.
So you're reporting the facts.
But a writer, if you give that same story to a writer, he'll change it. He will use adjectives. He'll talk about skirmishes and stuff, and yet again the world is on the precipice and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
He'll write it like
he'll embellish it.
He'll embellish it. He'll write it as a feature.
Right.
Meanwhile, a reporter will just slam straight in there between the eyes. Here it is.
Yeah.
And that's why most pages, most news pages, certainly the front page. The page 3 is normally a bit whimsical in most tabloids. They'll go for something. There's heavy, horrible news in page 1.
Yes.
So you're going to turn, and your next facing page is page 3.
Yeah.
Which used to be page 3 with the models and whatever. Right. So that'll be a bit of whimsy.
And then 4 and 5 are generally your news.
Pages 4 and 5 go back to news. You try and filter in the features with the news, so that it gives you a variety.
Yeah.
Plus, you'll get advertisers, Simon, who want their advert in beside the feature story.
Right.
They'll see that.
Yes.
And
that's where the money is, especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
So I suppose to round off, we could talk about your industry all day and all night for me, because I think it's fascinating as well. And I was lucky enough through my career to engage with it, like most CID officers and detectives do through the course of that. Some of the characters involved as well. But the thing that I want to round off on then is, it would be nothing without a bit of controversy. Speak to you, Alec. What about today's papers? How do they stand up to what we were doing back in the 80s, 40 years on?
Yeah, you get asked this all the time. It's Simon.
I'm sorry.
No. It's
some reporter that turned out to be.
No, I wasn't meant that way. No, it's a bit like I'm with you a lot, but the bottom line is that they don't stack up.
No,
they don't. No, and that's no disrespect to today's young guys, but a lot of them haven't been trained properly.
Okay.
And a lot suddenly. The bottom line is that they're maybe a cheap option to keep online things ticking over. They haven't been trained properly, and even in this day and age, it's that there are no offices now. It's hard to believe that the Daily Record, where I had Anderson Key and Oaktree, there is no office now. They work from home, and I would find that.
So you don't get that team dynamic.
No, absolutely not. And how do you get somebody looking over your shoulder saying, no, that's not right? You're sitting in a spare room, a bedroom, a kitchen.
Yeah.
And you're writing the stuff. You're not going to get a feel for it. And also, a lot of things that have changed is the whole dynamic of the newspapers, Simon. If I want to go and talk to somebody back in 1980, I could phone them. They didn't have to say, you better get permission off the club, or you better go through my agent, or you better do this. So you had a home number for somebody.
Mm-hmm. Where do you keep this contact book?
Yeah, it is in there somewhere. Everything's changed. The kids.
That relationship then with
that's
players,
gone.
managers, that's all gone.
That's all gone. I think they see them at a press conference. I mean,
and politicians will be the same. In those days, they probably had relationships with different reporters and whatever.
Absolutely.
And I know the police officers did, senior police officers did, who were running murder and major inquiries, had newspaper guys that they could trust, that they could use and be used by. To put certain things in and keep certain things back, and to provoke a reaction from the public in order to solve cases.
Yeah, we had something very similar. I had with Celtic and with Rangers, and I knew what was happening at Celtic, knew what was happening at Rangers, but it was 50-50.
Yes.
I mean, I remember going out with a Celtic director, I won't name him, but we were down the Lanterna on Hope Street, we were having lunch, and we reached that stage where we were getting into the nitty-gritty. And I said, right, the deal is 50-50, 70-30 Celtic. And I went, no. And he went, 60-40. I went, no. And so we ended up with 50-50, and I got some tremendous stories off that guy.
Right.
But the wonderful thing about newspapers...
Was he a nice guy, Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Kelly? How do you know it was Mr. Kelly? But I'm saying nothing. But the following day, he would leak stories to us, right?
Right.
And I knew it was 100% correct. We would go for it. The following day, you would get the daily papers following up our story.
Yes.
With the same guy saying, don't know where that came from. and you couldn't say, well, it came from you. You just knew you had to bide your time and the story would emerge. But that's down to trust.
Yes.
That to me was incredible.
And that's not built up over Zoom meetings and team meetings, you know what I mean? That's built up by face to face.
I mean, that's been a while since I was a sports editor at Sunday Mail. Do they even have expenses accounts now? Do they actually go out and meet
people?
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
And there's just so much you can do over the telephone.
So it's different. It's like everything else that's moved on. It's a different world that we live in.
I think the newspapers they've allowed it to happen to a certain extent. There are certain things that they could have done. You can get your news anywhere these days, we know that.
Yes.
But if you were paying the right kind of money for a columnist, I mean, I would buy newspapers for the columnist. I'd throw the rest of the paper away, but I'd read Hugh McElvany and I'd read Patrick Collins in the Mail and so on. And very rare have you got that calibre of a columnist that somebody would go and buy that paper just to see what this guy is, to be entertained, if you like, by that.
The one that's ringing in my head is the guy in the Sun, I think, for some reason, Tam Cowan.
Tam Cowan. Yeah.
I know that people buy that just for Tam's articles.
You do get that, because if the Sun don't put that up online, then the only place you're going to see it is physically in print in a paper.
And I used to do some work with Billy McLean, as I was telling you, and I remember a couple of times a reporter coming in and Billy would say, excuse me Simon, I need to do my article. And he would sit with the reporter and he must have had a wee bit of I don't know if it was the Record or the Sun or whatever it was.
I employed Billy McLean for a year.
Right, and a reporter would come and take whatever that week, whatever the controversy was that week.
We when Billy left Celtic for the second time, we knew there was no way back.
Yeah.
Now I got in touch with Billy, and I knew that Dundee had offered him the manager's job about 2 minutes after he had left Celtic. Really, they had. Billy, it was Ian Galletley, I think, was the chairman at the time. He let me sleep on it, but he knew that he wasn't going to go to Dundee. And I phoned him and I said, look, do you want to come and join the Sunday Mail? And Billy said, are you joking? And I knew he got on well with the press guys. He liked the press guys.
Yes.
When the clubs, the teams, Simon, went European tours, Billy would always be with Alec Cameron or Cootie Taylor.
Yes, they were his pals.
He mixed with these guys and he trusted them.
Yes.
And so we had a meeting, Billy and I, at some Italian restaurant. I can't remember where it was. It's opposite the Old Hilton. And he was up for it. He was really excited about coming to join the Sunday Mail.
Yeah.
And I said that the deal is there's no contract. I said if you get a job back in football,
take it.
Take it. You can leave us. And we're not going to say, wait a minute, you've still got another 9 months of your contract. And Billy worked with us for a year. he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And he came in, he did the Radio Clyde adverts,
Yes.
and he did them in a one. You know, you would have
Aye,
somebody
one
on
take.
the other end of the phone.
Aye.
It's Billy McNeil, read my hard-hitting comments in the Sunday Mail, blah, blah, blah. And he did
Job
it. He said, that, you fine? You all right with that? Right, good. He was just such a smart big guy.
Yeah.
And he would come in early every Saturday morning. And he would sit around and read the papers and tell you stories.
And chat to folk.
Aye.
Yeah, he was
And
so affable, wasn't he?
He was so approachable.
Yeah.
And
No airs and graces. You said something about ego earlier on.
No.
Billy didn't have one. That I saw.
the team...
And he had time for everybody, Alec.
Well, his pal was Mike Jackson. And
Right.
Mike could come through. Mike had gone to St Johnstone. I think Mike was seen as a wee bit of a bad boy.
Right.
Because he was with Paddy Clarend and wee Bertie.
Okay.
And
The Rat Pack.
old Robert Kelly didn't like this,
Right.
you know. And they would all go out together, and Mike would say, he said, Alec, what trouble could you go up to in Glasgow? They're rolling up pavements at 10 o'clock. He said, and Robert Kelly would call them in. Now, Billy was always with them.
Right.
And he said that Billy would be there, Robert Kelly would ignore Billy, because he was the captain.
Aye.
But Mike and Paddy
And Bertie.
and Bertie,
They
what
get
are you doing? And Mike would say, "Is my big pal invisible, Mr. Kelly?" You know, and Billy. But the point of that story was that Mike latterly, when Billy wasn't great, Mike went to every home game with him, made
Right.
sure he was fine. But Mike said he used to drive me crazy, Alec. He would wait, he would sign autographs for everybody.
Everybody, yes.
And Mike would be saying, "Come on, Billy, we've got to get up the road."
He wasn't going to
No,
lose there. Aye.
no, not until that last guy,
Yeah.
that last autograph, and I said, "Right, let's go up the road." She used to drive him crazy. But Billy just would not leave him. And the same with Bertie.
Aye.
I mean, I
Loved
was
it,
in
yes.
with Bertie and his company when the Celtic coach arrived for Lennox Town one day at Celtic Park. And there were guys like Samaras and Joe Ledley and
Right.
people there of that era. They were all filtering it. There was a pile of fans getting Bertie's autograph.
Sorry.
The present day players ignored. Nobody was running, and there's me, Bertie. That's your name, son. And I tell you, I was a Lisbon lion.
Well, you've got the jacket on. Permanently.
And meanwhile, the guys that are playing against Rangers tomorrow are looking over going,
Aye.
and everybody's getting me Bertie's autograph. But the point of that, Simon, sorry, I've veered off.
Not at
My
all.
apologies.
Not at all.
Was not one of these guys had an ego.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah.